Somewhere in the rainforest of Guatemala, a stone pyramid rises 200 feet out of the jungle canopy. 1,000 years ago, a city of tens of thousands of people lived at its base. Then the story goes, they vanished. One of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world. A people who tracked the movements of Venus, built cities without metal tools, and wrote in a language of glyphs no one could read for centuries, simply disappeared into the trees and left their temples to the vines. You've heard some version of that story. It is in the documentaries, the textbooks, the mystery shows, and almost every part of it is wrong. The Maya did not vanish. This is the first thing you need to let go of, because it changes everything that follows. There are between 6 and 7 million Maya people alive today, speaking around 30 Mayan languages in Guatemala, Mexico, Belize, and Honduras. They never left. What actually happened is stranger and sadder and far more useful to us, because it is a story about how a brilliant, powerful society can come apart, while its people are still standing in the ruins. Here's what really happened. For roughly 6 centuries, the great cities of the southern Maya lowlands, Tikal, Palenque, Copán, Calakmul, were among the most sophisticated places on Earth. Their kings raised carved stone monuments and dated them with a calendar accurate to the day. And it is those dates that let us watch the end arrive, almost in real time. Because in the 9th century, the dates stop. At city after city across the southern lowlands, the last carved monuments cluster in the 800s and then simply cease. The construction halts. The royal courts fall silent. Over the span of roughly 100 years, the southern heartland of the Maya world lost the vast majority of its population. Cities that had held tens of thousands emptied out, and the rainforest moved back in. This is what scholars mean by the Maya collapse. Not a people disappearing in a night, a century-long unwinding of a whole political and religious order written in the silence where the monuments used to be. The question is not where did they go? The question is, what broke? For a long time, that question had no good answer. Then scientists learned to read the weather of 1,000 years ago. The evidence came from unglamorous places, from a stalagmite in a cave called Baum in Belize, growing one drip at a time, its chemistry recording every wet and dry year. From the mud at the bottom of Lake Chichencanab, where layers of gypsum form only when the water evaporates in drought. From a core of ocean sediment in the Cariaco Basin, where the dust of dry years settles in bands you can count like tree rings. And they all say the same thing. Beginning in the late 700s and running for centuries, the Maya lowlands were struck by the most severe and sustained droughts the region had seen in 2,000 years. Not one long dry spell, but a series of brutal droughts stacked one after another, with only brief recoveries between them. At their worst, some reconstructions suggest rainfall may have fallen by 40% or more. Now understand what that meant for these particular cities. The southern Maya farmed with rain. They had no great rivers running through their heartland, no vast irrigation networks. They depended on the sky arriving on schedule and on reservoirs to carry them through the dry season. A civilization of millions was balanced on the reliability of the rain, and the rain stopped being reliable. The Maya were not naive about water. A city like Tikal was, in effect, a machine for catching rain. Its great plazas paved and gently sloped to funnel every downpour into vast reservoirs that could hold millions of gallons, enough to carry 100,000 people through the dry season. It was brilliant engineering, but it was engineering built for a normal year. When the rains that filled those reservoirs failed to come season after season, The very ingenuity that had made the city possible could not save it. There is nothing to channel when nothing falls. But here is where the easy story. A drought killed the Maya. Yes, falls apart, because drought alone cannot explain it. Other droughts had come before and the Maya had survived them, and some cities, especially in the wetter north, came through this one, and even thrived. So the drought was not a bullet. It was a match dropped on something that was already dangerously dry. By the year 800, the Maya had been clearing their forests for centuries to feed a growing population. Pollen trapped in the lake beds shows the trees vanishing, replaced by farmland. And with the forest went the soil, eroding off the hillsides and the land's ability to hold water. They had, in a sense, been drying out their own country before the sky ever did. At the same time, the carved monuments of the final century record something else. War. Not the ritualized raiding of earlier centuries, but escalating, grinding conflict between overstretched kingdoms competing for shrinking resources. You can read it in the record itself. The final inscriptions grow preoccupied with capture and sacrifice. Defensive walls go up around cities that had never needed them, and once great capitals fall to their rivals and are never rebuilt. A people who had competed through monument building and astronomy were now competing simply to survive. And above all of it sat the deepest fracture of all. A Maya king was not merely a ruler. He was a holy lord, a Kuhulajau, whose entire claim to power rested on his ability to intercede with the gods, to keep the cosmos in order and the rain falling. So when the rain failed, year after year, and the rituals did not work, it was not only the crops that failed, it was the king. It was the whole idea that had held the society together. Drought stressed the fields. Deforestation that had already weakened the land. War consumed what was left. And the failure of the rains quietly dissolved the authority of the men at the top. That is the synergy that emptied the cities. No single villain, but a system failing at every level at once. And yet, the Maya did not end. This is the part that the myth erases. While the southern cities emptied, the Maya world did not go dark. It moved. In the northern Yucatan, cities like Chichen Itza rose to their greatest power in exactly the centuries after the southern collapse. The famous pyramid the tourists photographed was flourishing while the vanished civilization was supposedly already gone. Maya kingdoms continued for another 700 years. The very last independent Maya city, Nochpeten, on an island in a Guatemalan lake, did not fall until 1697, conquered by the Spanish nearly 1,000 years after the collapse, and almost 2 centuries after Columbus. Think about the arithmetic of that. The gap between the supposed vanishing of the Maya and the last Maya king surrendering his crown is longer than the gap between the fall of Rome and the Renaissance. For all those centuries, there were still Maya cities, Maya kings, and Maya scribes painting books into script their ancestors had invented. A civilization we describe as having disappeared in the 9th century went on writing its own history for another 800 years. The people who built the pyramids never disappeared. Their descendants farm the same land, speak versions of the same language, and remember. The civilization that vanished is, at this moment, cooking dinner in millions of homes across Central America. So why do we keep telling the story of a vanishing? Maybe because they mysteriously disappeared is a more comfortable thing to believe than what actually happened. A mysterious disappearance is a puzzle, something that happened to them from outside, unknowable. But the truth is that the Maya collapse was not a mystery and not an accident. It was a sophisticated society that grew until it was brittle, leaned its entire survival on a stable climate, stripped its own land, fought over the remainder, and trusted leaders whose power depended on a sky that finally betrayed them. And when it came apart not in a flash, but slowly, over generations, with people living through every year of the decline. That is not a story about a lost people. It is a story about a system, and about how the grandest cities can be abandoned while the civilization that built them survives, and walks out of the ruins and keeps going. The Maya never vanished. We just prefer the version where they did.